very blurry, like XRP, Bitcoin, like they're so different in nature.
They're not even in the same conversation. Like from a technology perspective, like the base level, like the concept is, yes, a decentralized, not even decentralized, a distributed environment for transactions to occur. But, you know, obviously they're completely different versions of the same tech. And I also think that when people talk about XRP, and I know this gets people so heated talking about, you know, their thoughts on where it's going, but, you know, you also have to think about a coin in terms of whether or not it's meant to accrue in value. Like if something's not built to just generate this huge amount of supply and demand pressure to build up value, like does the infrastructure of the people behind, you know, XRP, do they want the token to be $1,000 per token? In my opinion, they don't. So if you look at it that way, with all the different controls there are for supply and demand on XRP, will it ever have the freedom to get to that crazy valuation that people are assuming? You know, that's the other question. Because I think some people, when you look at it from who controls the supply and the demand, in Bitcoin, there isn't anyone who controls supply and demand. It's kind of open on it's a free market. And so the value can kind of go up and go down with no real ceiling.
I also think people need to understand the difference between XRP, Ripple, and like you said, the evaluation of understanding how many coins there are versus the value versus how much it would actually have to grow to get to the evaluation that these people are trying to put a number to.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that for the longest time. I have no economy background. I'm terrible with numbers. I've got very little experience with finances. So when it comes to kind of really grasping market cap values and really getting at that, it took me a long time to wrap my head around it. But once I did, I was like, wow, this is such a huge component of really understanding the possibility of the growth of the project. And I think that's a huge point that people are missing, is that it's just general lack of education in that.
Yeah, like how relevant is the token to the ecosystem, and how is the ecosystem going to drive demand for upward price pressure? Absolutely. So that's a question that I think makes sense to ask you, Forrest, is like, is Ethereum designed for upward price pressure, right? Because like, I would think that you wouldn't want gas fees to be like exorbitant to use the Ethereum network. Is Ethereum designed for?
You know, in my opinion, no. And that's why I always, when Ethereum was at that crazy valuation the end of last year, I was like, there's no way that this is sustainable, because, you know, dApps cost a fortune to run. They really still do, even at these low prices. I was reading an article today about, you know, people with crypto collectibles, like non-fungible tokens. A lot of people want to sell those, but it costs more in gas to sell it than it's worth. And so like those are some issues that people have to tackle when it comes to Ethereum, because it wasn't designed to be you know, an investment, an asset. Yeah. You know, and that's you know, the definition of a utility token is that it's used as sort of a, you know, it's the currency of the protocol, but it's not an investment per se. Like the purpose of the token is not for people to hold it and then sell it for a profit. It's to use it and do things with it. So I think that's something that's going to get clearer and clearer as time goes on. You know, I don't think security tokens, utility tokens are the last classifications we're going to have. I think there's going to be more ways to split up the types of tokens that are a part of a platform, and there's going to be more like multi-token platforms coming into the mix, just to make it easier for people to tell what's what.
Yeah, definitely, man. I agree 100%. So it's definitely interesting to see what all these projects are going to be doing moving forward, especially with so many of them doing the exact same thing almost, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's good competition. It's healthy, but at the same time, I envision that down the road, a lot of these guys are going to hop board or, you know, jump ship and end up going on to some of these other projects that have more establishment and have more developers onto it as well. So
just look at a snapshot from CoinMarketCap in like 2015 or 2016. Yeah. I mean, it's like you don't recognize any of the coins in the top. I mean, it's a couple, but most of the coins in the top 20, I mean, they're long gone. So there will be a lot of changes and turnovers, like especially with new gen blockchains coming up. Like, I don't know, what do you guys think about like the next generation of blockchains? Is that going to make some of these things obsolete? Like, is it too hard for Ethereum to start adapting everything they need to become functional?
If some of these 3.0 projects can actually create and follow through and have a functioning product, let's say like Cardano, if it can do what it's saying it's promising, then yeah, I think these other projects are definitely in trouble because they're starting from scratch and building in these ideas and preparing these projects for growth and for other add-ons and other implementations. Whereas ETH is kind of like backpedaling right now to try to figure out how to fix things moving forward, to deal with the scalability issues. And even still, it seems, that they're lagging behind in when they said that they were going to be able to do things. So it's all a matter of time. It's like, let me look at my magic ball and tell you what I think. But if 3.0s follow through on what they're promising, then yeah, Ethereum's, I think, in a bit of trouble.
There's also the one thing you have to consider too is that you're having a lot of pre-existing companies and businesses that are now realizing that they can get involved in this blockchain stuff as well. So, for example, you've even seen, like, I recently just did an interview with Ergo. Actually, Alex, you were on that, Token Tank, and they came from Blocko, so they're already working with all these different enterprises already. They already have that. And the other thing you have to consider as well is geographic location. You could have two blockchains or two companies that do the exact same thing, and they may not get adopted in one particular area. You're seeing a.ka with South Korea, even though in a recent poll, apparently they like EOS more, but that's for a different story. But yeah, so I think you're going to find these guys kind of have different niche markets, and I don't see it being like a one fit solution for everything personally. So I think that there's still plenty of time to grow. And the one thing that I find interesting is when I interview all these different projects, I always ask them, who is your biggest competitor? What do you think? And they all say this. Literally, I have not one interview that they didn't say, we don't really have competitors. The space is so small. Who are we competing against? Like at this point, we're better off helping each other than we are competing because none of us really have it just right,
Yeah, and I wish that were more of the sentiment across a lot of different projects because I feel like there are a lot of people thinking about being the winner at the end of the day without having a finished product and people using the finished product. Like, ego only goes so far when you don't have a product that actually works. So that's one thing that I will say for the Ethereum ecosystem is that if you're a dApp developer, you are just a part of the community and you ask for help, you're 9 times out of 10 going to get it. And it's not about like who's going to make more money. It's just we want the ecosystem to work. We want people to build stuff with Ethereum. And I think that's one thing that helps platforms like Ethereum stay relevant, even when the tech's not all there yet. And even when their roadmap is too slow. And I mean, I'm invested in the Ethereum ecosystem, and it's too slow. So I can admit that.
It's interesting to hear you say, KDubb, that they are so cooperative. The teams are so cooperative, but then the communities oftentimes are so tribalistic. It's so much tribalism. And like, as a community, that doesn't serve anybody either, because ultimately we want to see these ideas move forward. And then the realization of them could be possible. But this is just like a big experiment. A lot of this stuff is really unproven. So I think a better holistic approach is like support cryptocurrency, support blockchain, support decentralization, get interested in projects you like, but don't go like slamming other coins because you have no idea who the winner is going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like a.ka may have, tons of employees and tons of funding, and they might have everything, but it could be 2 random dudes that do it. Like look at the Wright brothers, look at how the airplane was invented, right? Like some of the most incredible developments could come out from a dude who's sitting in his mom's basement eating Pop-Tarts. Like, we have no idea where the innovation is going to come from. So stay open-minded.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's something that I try to stay up on. But like, you get that flack on the channel because if you talk to startups, you're instantly like pushing an ICO, and it's like, guys, you don't have to invest. Like, we can literally just look into a project, analyze it, have a discussion, and not invest. Isn't that crazy? But some people don't understand that. Like, sometimes I'm just interested in that moving forward because I think that all these different ICOs or even STOs or whatever that are coming out, I agree with you. I don't think I'm not sure we've seen the best yet. I don't think we've seen it yet. I think it's still, there could be, like you said, a 10-year-old kid in his basement right now, freaking genius, just mashing away on some code that we've never even seen before. And, we're not going to give them a chance because, I'm not going to buy your ICO. You know what I'm saying? I really think that for me, the research of these up and coming startups is just as pleasurable and just as important as also analyzing the ones that exist, looking at where we've been, where we're going, and how can we fix it? Because you know how it is, man. You ever just work on a project or something? You ever just stare at the same screen for too long? You don't see it if you just go, hey, come here, and you ask somebody else, like, hey, can you check this? And they'll go, oh, there's a spelling error. This doesn't sound right. And I think that sometimes you do get stuck looking at the same code over and over and over again. And I think we need these like fresh new people coming in. So that's my opinion, man. I mean, for me, it's still a journey every day. I love the research. I love the deep dive. So I'll probably never stop interviewing and looking into new projects, honestly. But I still think that we do need to support the ones that exist. And like you said, community, even though it can be a little tribal, is very important, especially from the developers. So, well,
I mean, we also don't know what we don't know, right? So we can't sit here and say we have the best tech now when we know we don't. We can't sit here and say that, these blockchain 3.0 projects are the end all be all, because we don't know that. And like you said, Kyle, there could be someone somewhere mashing on buttons and writing this amazing code, and we'll see it in 5 or 6 years. So it's not fair to the community as a whole for individuals to shoot down interviews and shoot down project ideas and be so close-minded about new tech and new startups, because that's what this whole space is, right? So it's unfair. I get the same thing when I do interviews, or when I cover a project that's not super popular, but it's genuinely just because I'm interested. They're like, oh, you're a shill, or oh, this is a shit coin or whatever. I'm like, well, what if it's not though? Like, why can't you just be open-minded and listen to what everybody's talking about and make an opinion about it? If you don't like it, move on. But it doesn't mean that you have to be negative and tribalistic about it, because that's not constructive. And quite honestly, it's exhausting too.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like, they don't even really get a lot of views. Like, honestly, if you were just going to be like, I'm just the YouTuber here for views, I wouldn't even do interviews. They don't get any views. But I still think to myself, we're in a bear market. Maybe no one's interested right now, but I feel like personally, if I find something of interest, I want to share so some people can watch it, and at least I know that point of reference existed. You had an opportunity to access the information. Whatever you did with it is up to you. So I just feel better about that.
Yeah, small startup interviews are like the worst, like view count, subscriber count. Like, it's just terrible. So if you see somebody doing that, they're probably not getting paid tons of money from like a YouTuber to promote it, unless they're like, buy this, and then that sounds like a shill. But if it's a conversation between two people, like, it probably wasn't a paid conversation.
Well, I mean, we just had a conversation with Reserve stablecoin. It's actually a token tank that I haven't put out yet. I was supposed to put it out last night and just got crazy behind schedule. But long story short, I was like, I literally asked the guy, like, why do we need another one? Like, what, and I really want to know, like, I'm curious, because we have all these different stable coins. So sometimes it's really good to just put people in their place and just be like, why? And
see what the answer is to that question. Yeah. Because I think if you are a product owner or you're a startup and you don't have that phrase down, like, why is this project important? Why does this count? Why is this different from what we already have? If they don't have that, then right there, that's a red flag. And so I think that's a great question to ask any startup, and looking at the white paper isn't necessarily going to tell you everything, because a lot of it has to do with the team. A lot of it has to do with timing and that sort of thing. So
do you know how easy it is to just fabricate a white paper that looks really good?
Yeah, for sure.
That's literally the reason that we're in this situation and had that crazy bull run and dump, because literally all the white papers look great. And then it was like, you ever see that thing where it's like
not all of them,
the promise, and then it's like the horse, and it goes from being really drawn
really detailed to being like a stick figure at the end? I love that one. Yeah.
That's exactly how it is. I mean, people just got let down, I would rather a project under promise and over deliver. Like people get pissed when projects don't really like have a lot of updates, which I understand from an investment standpoint. That sucks, because you want to know how your project's doing. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I've heard a lot of criticisms over certain projects, like not hitting milestones, and it's like, well, they could hit the milestone and have it not really be good, just hit it to hit it, or they can push it back and get it just right. And then long term, you're going to probably appreciate that a lot more when you're not using the blockchain and suddenly there's a bug and all your money gets gone, or an issue,
And that's what I was going to say is I'm always refreshed when there's a missed deadline for a roadmap. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it shows that they actually care about the final product that they're releasing. And I think people underestimate how damaging it is to release something that isn't ready. People forget so quickly, like the DAO hack and other things that are a product of loopholes that weren't fixed when people weren't thinking ahead. And the fact that people are like, oh, you know what? This isn't ready for prime time. Like, the one thing that's guaranteed is that people are going to find the loopholes and they're going to wreck everything if you don't close them all.
And that's
so take your time.
The major reasons that, I feel like this always comes full circle for me, but that I love Cardano is because, having people doing research behind it and testing it, and it being so long and taking so long, like you said, Forrest, it's almost, it almost makes me feel better and more confident because I know that they're not just pushing out product. Not to mention their roadmap has like progress update bars and like constant updates about what they're doing and what they're fixing and stuff. But I think it is really important to understand that we are in such a new space and things need to be growing and progressing. And as you said, with the DAO hack, the issues that we've had, we have to be very careful because something of that nature, people losing money, is going to make people disinterested and disenfranchised with crypto and not want to be a part of the space. And then ultimately, what happens? Then we have people leaving because we have crappy developers who are just trying to push projects instead of taking their time. Like, that's not helpful for anyone, whether it's us, the community, or the developers of the projects.
Yeah, and we say this to people all the time when we're developing, apps. A lot of times it's on Ethereum, lately at least, but it's comparing a software mistake where there's a bug. That's a minor thing. Even if it's taken, if someone pulls the string and a hacker really gets access to something, that's a mistake. But with a smart contract, that's an immutable mistake, and it's a mistake you can't fix. Yeah. So it's like, try and break it 100 times.
Can I cut you off on that? I want to ask you personally, how do you feel about that? Because that is a big problem with Ethereum, is that the contracts are just set in stone. And a lot of these newer projects, they're making them flexible. They're making them upgradable. What's your thoughts on that? Does that go against the, code is king? Or do you, I think you need to be able to evolve. Don't you agree?
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, if you have upgradable smart contracts, you still have that audit trail of what, where you started and now where you are right now. One of the big problems that I've seen, on myself, on my own apps, is if I want to move to a new version of code, I lose all the data that was in that smart contract. Everything in storage is just like stuck there. And if you have, you can use registries and refer back to the old contract to pull data. That's just a huge mess, and it's a wasteful process, like for gas. So I think Ethereum does need to come up with something to make contracts upgradable. And I don't think it goes against the code is king idea because there's still a reference back to where you started.
Yeah, and recently we had the Bitcoin loophole, which looked like no one exploited that. But that's the type of thing that if you're rushing developments and you make a mistake, like, you may not only hurt your project, you could hurt the entire ecosystem. But I always like to see, talking about projects that, kind of overpromise or underdeliver and then underdeliver. I like to see projects that, aren't just saying like, we have 10 million transactions per second right now, like in
our test environment. We're like going back and forth between two. Sure.
I'll let you go. Huge red flag to be like bragging about the number of transactions per second. Huge red flag when you see like tons of buzzwords like strung together, like AI, blockchain, security token, like
fully scalable,
like fully decentralized, like sharding, like
there's
every word.
Website, Matt, there's a website where they do that for you. You can build your own fake white paper. You tell them how long you want it to be, and you tell them like the amount of buzzwords and like if you want it to be more text or more. Like, literally, it writes a white paper for you.
Now, if something like that existed when I was in college for research papers, I would have been very happy.
That's so funny. I can't wait to play around with that and just throw in every buzzword under the sun.
I'll have to send it to you. I forget the web. I actually talk about it in one of my news videos. I can't remember what it was though, but
it's pretty funny. Paper.
So what I was thinking of too, this was actually, I think this was like one topic before, but when we were talking about the degree of centralization versus decentralization in coins and the whole code is king thing, and some people get pissed off, like, and we think about like what happened, with like the DAO hack. Well, it would have sucked if all those people lost their money, but then you have the purists saying, well, that it is what it is, right? And I started thinking about, you guys remember when Bancor got hacked? And then they found out that they basically had a backdoor entrance so that they could basically freeze everything. And then everybody was like, oh, well, then we feel like we were lied to and this and that. It's like, yeah, but they actually saved those funds from leaving. So like, think about it. Like, it's easy for you to be the guy on the outside and be like, oh, well, that's baloney, right? But what if that was your money on the exchange? Then you'd be like, well, can't you do something?
Yeah.
Right. So like people just love to just say whatever, but you got to think about it. Like we're trying, okay? We're not just going to go, you know, the car's going down the highway. We're not just going to change the engine while it's running. We have to do this slowly.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're invested, I think if you're invested in crypto and if you're participating in these exchanges, you need to understand where we are in terms of like maturity in general. I think people get lulled into this false sense of security because you have these like beautiful mobile apps with the UI that's like super nice. And they're like, oh, this is all done. Everything's perfect. This should work just exactly as I thought it would. But it's still nascent and it's still new. And a lot of these teams are small still. You know, you don't have an entire really wealthy team of software developers banging this out day to day, 24/7. You know, these people are marketing, coding, attending meetings, and all these other things all on their own. So
speaking of exchanges, another hot topic, Stellar X, because we're talking about, you know, knowing where we are with exchanges, and this is a fully decentralized exchange, Stellar X. So pretty interesting to see Stellar entering this space. And if they can provide liquidity for a decentralized exchange, you know, so I may be jumping ship from Binance real quick.
How comfortable, like, did you do enough research on it to elaborate? Because I Googled it a little bit today out of curiosity, and I kind of have a couple of comments. First one is why? I mean, why another decentralized exchange when what we need is liquidity on decentralized exchanges. What we don't need is 1,000 decentralized exchanges with no liquidity. And also, Stellar, you're serving a purpose which is supposed to be like a bridge for transactions that are fast, cheap, and can be, you know, all over the world. Why are they now going into decentralized exchange? And what's with this assets that are tethered? They're not actually assets. You have to pull them off and then cash them out elsewhere. What's the deal with that?
I'm not sure on the last point. But in terms of Stellar entering the space, I think that they're in a unique position to draw attention to their DEX, which would then really help provide liquidity. Because ultimately, the more projects you have on there and the more volume you can attract, the more liquidity you can have. And I think Stellar's in a unique position to do that versus IDEX or something where the you know, you're not going to have that marketing push. And I think ultimately, a lot of what's happening in this space needs to be marketed well because there's so much going on. So cutting through that and having the partners and the ability to really onboard, I think, is a huge asset. But I don't know what the last point you're mentioning. I guess you're saying the assets aren't.
So basically, what you're trading on the exchange is like tethered, like kind of stable versions of the asset themselves, and you can't cash out of something else other than lumens on there. Like, you can cash out in lumens, but if you want to cash out in something else, you have to pull it off the exchange and go elsewhere to some other gateway to get rid of it.
Is there Stellar X you're talking about?
Stellar X.
I haven't tried it yet. I went on it, I looked at it, but I haven't even had a chance.
You're nodding your head. Do you know more about this than I do?
So I wanted to say that I think I was reading something about like early research on how they were going to do this. So I have not read up about how they did implement it and what's going on with it right now. But my understanding was that the way they were approaching it is they were going to use like white label tokens, so stable coins. And I think they were called white standard tokens, and they had ones that were pegged to the US dollar, British pound, etc. And I think that's how they're making the exchange rates work. So you're able to buy those tokens with your fiat currency, or you can buy lumens with fiat currency and then buy those standard tokens and trade that way. I'm fairly certain that was the approach they took, rather than having direct fiat transactions, which I don't think anyone can feasibly do right now, just in the regulatory landscape.
Somebody in my chat actually brought up a really good point. What about, I mean, if and when Binance ever does actually successfully create their DEX, then what? I mean, that seems like a pretty big competition in the space.
also to themselves, right? Like if Binance rolls out an awesome DEX, like I'll be using that.
Yeah.
I think most people would be using that. I don't know.
And that's the other thing too that we keep talking about. You know, even if somebody does come up with something that is somehow 10x better, you know, you do have that adoption of Binance. So many people are already using it. So when Binance rolls out their DEX, everyone's going to be like, I'm already familiar with this. I'm already comfortable with this. Why am I going to like change, you know, what I'm used to? So yeah, and I do think that the liquidity is a huge issue. That, you know, for me, IDEX was huge for me for ERC20s. That's like my go-to, and Switcheo for next. And sometimes it's like, you know, for small trades, it's fine, a couple $100, $1,000. But like, you know, I'll be honest, I've done some pretty big moves. You know, I'll do like a quick swing trade, and sometimes I put it on there. I go to do it. I'm like, I can't move the money. Like, and then I feel like I am that like little mini
market mover.
Yeah, I am that guy, but I'm not trying to be. It's just that there's not enough liquidity.
40% of the trading volume for the day.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we definitely. I mean, I know a lot of guys are looking to fix this. You know, Loopring, they're doing their best. Kyber, they're doing their best, I guess. Even though actually they're not the same thing. I shouldn't say they're the same thing. But a lot of projects are trying to solve the liquidity issue moving forward. But like you said, if Binance comes out with the DEX, everyone's already using Binance. They're probably going to go there.
We've got that brand loyalty already for Binance for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, with all of this, with all of the issues that they've not issues, I should say, but the hiccups that they've had in the past that they've very efficiently handled and really proven themselves in the space to be, although a centralized exchange, a pretty reputable and reliable and trustworthy exchange. If they make a DEX, everybody else who's got one out there is going to be hard for us to get users.
I might be sad to see all the liquidity come in because, like you were saying, KDubb, you know, being a market mover, you kind of feel like a baller for a little bit. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm doing it on
the good old days,
a little tiny exchange, trying to do like a low cap trade, of course. But I mean, I'm not like a whale by any means. Nobody out there.
Grand trade was absolutely whale status on IDEX at the time. Okay.
Yeah,
it's all relative.
I have seen. It was funny. There were a few smaller cap projects that I did like kind of have like a little mini dent in back in the day, but I don't know if it like. I don't know, whatever. So
the tallest midget, you know.
I am not a whale. So, yeah, but I mean, like I said, I have looked into. There are other projects coming out, and somebody in my chat said, "Why don't they just make a wallet or like an app that does everything? Like you can buy, say, trade, sell, hold, transfer to mainnet tokens, and all this stuff." And actually, they are developing wallets like that right now. Like Arcana is one. I know they're doing it. And CryptoCurve actually is another one that they're looking to do some similar features as well. So they are working to develop stuff like this. It's just not 100% out yet. But I'm keeping my eyes on it though.
I'm pretty sure Ethos is doing swaps. I don't know if there's going to be markets for each thing, but I think you can do coin-to-coin swaps on there. I might be wrong, but
I think you're right on that, Alex.
Yeah, which is cool. But I agree that. I mean, in this day and age, too, using like an actual sitting down on a computer with your friggin' ledger plugged in to try to access IDEX to be able to, it's just so cumbersome and time consuming. And like, if the market's up or down and I'm at work and my ledger's at home, like in my little safe, I'm like, well, there goes that. Like, that's not happening for me.
I missed that opportunity. Yeah.
So, and I actually taled about that in the unboxing video.
That's happened to me before. Like, I literally couldn't get my stuff plugged in too fast, and I like missed a great opportunity. Yeah. Like that has actually happened to me before.
I just unboxed a wallet today. That the wallet itself is a cold wallet, and it generates the seed, but it never connects to the internet. And then you scan a QR code, and it links to the app on your phone, and everything is actually processed on your phone, which is pretty cool. And I'm like, well, this is really useful for people like me who maybe aren't home all the time and would like to keep like a small portion of stuff on an app like that to have it accessible and be usable and then keep something else somewhere separate. So, you know, usability is really important. And I think stuff like that is where we should really see more movement towards.
Somebody asked if it was ontology. No, Mohammed, I wish I had the ability to be a market maker for ontology. I don't have nearly as many funds, so I wish, but no. Great project though, great project.
Fantastic.
It was Bitcoin.
Yes, I moved Bitcoin. I single-handedly moved the Bitcoin.
OG.
Every time you see those bar charts, that's me, guys. You know that, right? So me doing that. It's just a funny game I play.
I knew your technical analysis was too spot on.
My technical analysis is literally, look, it's forming a triangle. That's it. I don't know anything else.
It's
astrology.
It's following that line. I don't know what that means, but it's following that line. Just so everybody knows, that's what I do for TA. That's why
if it touches 3 points, I draw a line, and I'm like, yeah, that's how you do it, right? If it touches a point 3 times and it bounces off, that must be resistance.
I want the coin's price to go this way. Draw the line this way.
Yeah, though, in all honesty, I wish I had spent a little more time on TA. I don't know, does it work in this market? I have no idea, but I have been interested on my downtime, just, learn a new skill.
I did that recently. I took a course on the TA, and then I went back and I started applying it to a bunch of coins, and I was like, well, I'll be damned. It looks like it does work pretty well.
Well, the theory
is it hindsight though, or is it?
Well, no. I mean, just applying the tools and applying the different methods. You can look back and say, well, if I had actually followed that TA at this point, I saw it happening a lot more than I expected. It was 70% right.
It's funny because when I first got into the space, I was very interested in that, and I actually spent a lot of time way before I started this channel doing research on TA and trying to learn. And a lot of people say, well, in this space, I don't think it works. I don't think it applies. And I actually think the polar opposite of my experience, because there's so many bots that are looking for these trading patterns that they're almost like self-fulfilling prophecies, right? So a bot sees movement in one direction and all the other bots are like, oh, okay, well, it's going to do this. And so everything happens the way it should because the market's so small, there's not as much liquidity comparatively to the stock market. So it's all kind of creating, these things are happening in a sense, very textbook, because the bots are reading them as such. And I've seen people post charts on Twitter and be and people say that this market's not manipulated, and it's perfect representations of.
Have you ever watched Dogecoin just trade on a normal day? It literally, it just goes
oh yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I'm trying to figure out what that is. That's not something I really get.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think the bots are a problem too? I mean, I don't know. I don't know I don't even focus on traditional stocks or anything like that. You think that, bot trading? You know what I'm saying?
I think bot trading could easily become an issue in equities as well. I mean, there's no way to say that having over 50% of the S&Ps on bots. So if there's a slide, you could see that slide, intensified by algo trading. And I think that's something that's very, very possible in the next year or two as we come to the end of this short-term debt cycle, because we've been rolling on a bull run for quite some time. And,
I mean, all the studies that are based on human nature don't apply anymore when you have a huge saturation of algorithm-based bots, and that's a scary thing for I think a lot of these institutional folks that are used to that, knowing how people are going to react to stuff. And then now it's not the same thing because it's all robots doing this stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing too is now you're hearing about the ones that, well, I don't know if it's true or not. I just base it on what I hear, but some of them actually respond. They actually scavenger over the different news headlines, and they'll actually take it into consideration. And if something comes out that sounds too fuddish, the bots will trigger to start dumping, and then you have stop losses getting triggered, and then it's like what happened last year with Ethereum when it crashed to was it $10 for 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, that was a great day for me. I had I think I kind of told this story before to you, but that's when I was margin trading, and I had an open long on GDAX for ETH, and it flash crashed, and I lost literally everything, and then Coinbase reimbursed everybody. So
there you go.
If that hadn't happened, I probably would have been so upset with what had happened that I may not have ever started the channel and stayed in crypto. So very interesting, but you got to be careful because it's so easy to.
Thank you, Coinbase.
Well, yeah, but it's so easy to get lulled into a false sense of security, thinking you know what you're doing, and the next thing you know, you have no idea what's going to happen. This market's crazy.
I can't even do that trading. Good for you. I'm too.
No, not good for me. Clearly.
I can't do that. It's too risk. I just can't you know what I mean? I don't have the time to deal with that stress of
That's why I stopped. I told myself I either need to do research to invest long term, or I learned to trade, and trading was too stressful, so I just started investing long term.
Yeah, and I think it's happened to all of us too. Everyone's had that pivotal moment where you just got crushed, and they're like, really? I now understand how a lot of people feel. And I think that's where we are right now, is there are a lot of people that are they thought at the end of last year, like, this is it. I'm quitting my job in February. Like, I'm done. And then February rolls around and it's nothing like that. It's like a bloodbath. And so the people that are still in this, like, thank you so much, because it's not easy to still believe, but that's the whole point of this movement. I call it the movement because that's really what it is.
Plus, the people who are here are the people that want to be here, and I'm not just talking about retail. I'm talking about developers. You know, because there was, I mean, really seriously, like, that was the problem with the bull market. Was it was a not double-edged sword. It was like adding to the problem is what I'm trying to say. Because, you know, the price was going up, the bull market is going up. More people are realizing that they can capitalize on this movement, on this blockchain. I mean, I've seen some, actually, I kind of actually try to find them, these old ICO scams, and I like to put them on my channel so people can see them. I mean, the guy couldn't even pronounce Ethereum. He was like literally like blockchain Ethereum. Like, it was just like, you know, so I'm actually glad that we flushed these people out. Like, now we're down to the nitty gritty. Now we're getting down to the serious people that actually care about the products, care about the work. And
but those people are going to come back. You know that, right?
They're, well, like, hopefully if they do come back, everyone in now is smart. Don't buy their freaking crappy coins, you know? Like,
and that's the key, is make sure, like, that's part of, I think, everyone here on this stream. It's like, that's the whole point of the channel, is to help people figure out what's going on in the market for real and cut through the hype, you know, eliminate all the extra noise and give people the straight truth as best we can.
Luckily, that's easier now because there's not too much noise from the media and everything. True. And I agree. I completely agree that this bear market is a good thing ultimately for not just developer. It's great for the whole space because it gives developers time to focus on real value, which is all that's ever going to get us out of the, you know, speculative bubble phase, right? Because when the prices were rocketing and everybody, you know, was saying it was a bubble, like, they were 100% correct. It was a bubble, but it's that was the first iteration of a bubble. And when real value comes in, it's going to absolutely blow that bubble away, in my opinion. And, you know, it's not going to be a bubble anymore. It's going to be real value. Just like, look at the FANG stocks right now. You know, that's real value. You know, Amazon trading over 1,000. Like, these companies, you know, had their bear markets, they had their downtimes, and then they were able to build real solutions that help real people. And, you know, that's what we're looking for, right? Because there's always going to be another speculative asset to try to make money on. Look at the pot stocks recently. Oh
my God, I know. But, you know, here's the thing. There's only a few of them. That's why. You know what I mean? Like, once they're, like, think about it. Like, when there were only a few cryptos, you know, like IOTA, right? And I like IOTA, fine. But, you know, you have that, like, there was only a couple DAGs. There was only a few Generation 3s. There was only, you know what I mean? But, like, now that there's more of them, I think that if once more pot stocks come out, I think they won't be as crazy. I think it's just because there's only like a few, like there's like 2 of them, right? That's it, I think. So, or something like that.
I know nothing about any of.
Yeah, I know nothing also. So
markets, I'm just gonna.
I hear things. The wind blows. I hear things, but I don't know. I don't like. I'm not like you guys know. I'm full-time crypto. I never even cared about stocks. I still really don't personally. I don't know. Maybe I'm silly. Maybe I should, but. I love crypto. It's too fun. It's just way more fun.
Crypto's way more fun. Like I actually did stocks. Like that was my passion always. And I still look at the traditional markets, but once you find crypto, like you're not going to be super stoked on the traditional markets anymore.
Crypto's a community too. I mean, most people don't live stream and talk about stocks and upcoming projects and IPOs and things like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, like Forrest said, it's a movement, right? These traditional valuations of companies that are obviously just ridiculously high because of monetary policy and all the garbage that happens. But, you know, that type of stuff, to me, it's not like, oh my gosh, Amazon's going to acquire yet again another business. Like, that's not exciting, but it's like a world-changing currency, something that could, you know, take away the dependence from central banking and provide people like saving power and, you know, a money that's free market and provides real value. Like, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And I always laugh because there are a lot of people, you know, I do this stuff for a living from the software development side. And a lot of people challenge me on, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you betting your career on this? Like, this whole thing's going to go away and you're going to have to restart. And it's like, all I can really do is laugh because, you know, a lot of times, especially if they're emailing me, it's like, just respond with something simple. The fact that you can email me, in 1980, someone thought that this was a stupid idea. The fact that you're emailing me this nonsense means that this is going to survive. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. Like all these projects, the like 6,000 to 7,000 projects there are, not all of these are going to survive. It's going to be a few, but the movement as a whole is going to survive. You know, like the big now. Yeah, I agree.
I think there's too many people in the space. There's too many intelligent people, too many talented developers. I mean, even if something does change and we all decide like, hey, we're going to go with DAG, or hey, we're going to go with this or whatever. I think that, like, what are all these guys just going to be like, well, that was a fun ride, boys. That's it. Let's just go, you know, like, no, they're going to try. They're going to keep moving. I mean, these types of people that do blockchain, these developers, I mean, if you go to the conferences, you speak with these people, they're some of the most passionate people that I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, the way they talk about it, you know, the funny thing is, like, you'd go on YouTube and everyone's talking about price. You go to one of these places and you talk to the developers, they're just like, huh? Wait, what is Bitcoin at? I don't know. I was busy working, you know, busy trying to like, so.
Well, you know, in that same spirit, it's like, this is an adventure, right? Like you can never know that whatever career you're going to get into is going to be perfectly safe, or, you know, you can always think that your career is the safe, tried, true method. And it's like, oops, blockchain completely disrupted your industry and now it's no longer relevant, or something else, AI replaced you, you know, machine learning took you out. So you can never be like 100% secure. So for me and from my standpoint, it's like, why not go on a more exciting adventure, you know? And that's what crypto is. It's an exciting adventure, and, you know, we're all along for the ride. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with all of that.
I mean, how, like, so you say you actually do pay attention to traditional stocks a little bit, right, Matt? I mean, how has it been overall? Do you find that it's is this a pattern, or is it just crypto? I mean, what's going on with everything else? You know, you got
traditional markets. They behave kind of like a machine. There's just cycles that occur over and over and over again. So short-term debt cycles last 8 to 10 years. And this is like the boom bust cycle of stocks, right? You see it happen all the time. And it's like mainly tied into the Fed's adjusting interest rates, which is the cost of borrowing money. So they'll jack them up, they'll bring them down. It's monetary policy controls this. And after the 2008 crisis, we entered unprecedented waters in terms of monetary policy, where interest rates globally went to 0%, and quantitative easing, which is just a fancy term for printing money when you need to pay off big debts, right, became, you know, this huge thing. And the US started printing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. This money went right back into the same institutions that caused the financial crisis in 2008. And now they have tons of money to put into stocks, but they should be using all of this money to invest. But instead you see them, you know, doing, you know, buyback programs. So a lot of these corporations, they're just doing buyback programs. So in my opinion, we're on the last leg of fiat money, seriously, because no fiat money has ever survived in the history of mankind. They're flawed because people are flawed. And, you know, when you try to play, you know, God or the weatherman with macroeconomics, it never has worked traditionally. And I do not believe it will work forever. Like most of the top financial people in, you know, equities, or like CEO Goldman or Paul Tudor Jones or Ray Dalio, who runs the biggest hedge fund in the world, they all recognize the fundamental underlying issue with our, you know, fiat economic system. So that's really what brought me to crypto in the first place.
Matt, are you sure you're not Satoshi? Because that pretty much described why Bitcoin was created. I mean, you pretty much like summed up banking on Bitcoin. Like, really, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, my passion was in this world, right? Like I was looking at these markets and thinking like, oh no, assets are just like insanely overvalued. You know, fiat money is not, we can't print next time. We can't lower interest rates. What's going to happen? And I still believe we're kind of on this massive I mean, just look at the charts for the stock markets. I mean, just visually, like if you were like a 5-year-old and you looked at it, like what's going to happen next, honey? Like it's not that hard to see.
That's so funny that you say that, dude, because this is something I've even looked at years ago. I used to, you know, like you're growing up, you know, when you're like a kid, you're a teenager, you question everything. You know, it's funny because I feel like movies like E.T., like even as a kid, have always taught me to like always be a little suspicious of those men in suits. You know? But like I realized, you know, moving forward that it is weird. And even when you look at like global debt, we just brush it off like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
No.
How can you ever pay something off when the guys that issue the money issue it to you with a percent on it? Like, how are you ever going to pay that off? Like the Federal Reserve is printing money, they're giving it to you, but they're giving it to you with interest. How am I supposed to pay you back when you're the one that's issuing it to me? And that's just in America, you know, just the U.S. But
and not to mention, like that's the U.S.'s economy. And then I recently found out what stock buybacks were, which is why I'm going to just like, and also, you know, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, basically the government gives these people tax breaks, and they use that money that they're getting from the government to buy their stock and then pretty much artificially inflate the cost of their own business to look more successful, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kind of like just financial engineering happening, right?
Which is insane. So like
a lot of things that we think are like safe things, like I don't believe are safe things, right? Because there's massive derivative markets. It's like $1 quadrillion of derivatives. And you got Goldman Sachs bankers who want to make fat returns on selling products to pension plans. So they sell the most like convoluted, confusing products where they just blend together betas from a million different things so that they can sell it. That doesn't happen in
crypto? That doesn't happen in crypto?
Well, it does, but so that they can sell it to people's, you know, they could sell to pension plans. And a lot of, I believe, these systems that everybody thinks is going to be standing in 40, 50 years, a lot of these government funded programs, I think it's a pipe dream, an absolute pipe dream. And that's why crypto is really important, because ultimately what happens, and we've seen this globally with Venezuela and all of these countries, right? That if the Zimbabwe and Argentina, and they have currency crisis and people are, you know, totally screwed. They've been working their whole lives saving money, and then now they don't have any because the money's monopoly money. And ultimately, if cryptocurrency could become, and I don't think it's there yet, but if cryptocurrency could become a free market money, it's the only thing that makes sense in the digital world, right? Like we're not going to be sending around gold. I can't, like, I can send you a Satoshi, but I can't send you 1/1,000,000th of an ounce of gold, right? So, you know, with the world the way it is, like, look at how we're talking. We're talking on the computer, right? Yeah. Like, if you buy products, like, you buy them on the computer, you email people. Like, this is a digital world we're moving into. It needs a digital programmable money, and that is definitely going to be cryptocurrency. So,
right.
Well, yeah.
So here, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really quickly. I think another thing everyone needs to think about is, you know, and then when you start moving into digital money, how is it governed? Because at the end of the day, you know, a system like we've talked about, people are flawed. And when you give people ultimate freedom to do whatever they want, they find a way to mess it up. And that's why a lot of fiat currency doesn't work. So it's how as cryptocurrency folks and people who are developing these platforms and trying to replace this system, how do we prevent that from happening all over again with too much freedom in crypto? Because I think there's a fine line between changing the way we do it now and giving people too much that they can do damage with.
I completely agree with that. So, you know, I think it's going to be up to coming up with some really, you know, decentralized, trustless ways to do this. Like, I don't know if it's around yet. I mean, maybe it's Bitcoin, but I don't think so. It may not be around yet. But if we could have a code that were actually immutable and it worked, and just let it be, you know, that would be the best thing.
I'm with you.
I do look at it the same way that they use that same tried analogy of Bitcoin being like digital gold, because it kind of has the same properties, but like better for the situation that it's in. You know, like you go from gold in the real world, like you said, Matt, like, what are you going to do? Shave it off on the counter, then at the end of the day, scoop it up, melt it all back down? No, that's ridiculous, right? Well, now we have Bitcoin. Great. I can, you know, 10-minute block confirmation. Awesome. But then again, you know, it's got to go through multiple confirmations. So I don't get it for like an hour, right? So it's still like a step in the right direction, but it can be improved upon. I do think that Bitcoin will, in my personal opinion, I could be wrong, that's just my opinion, I think it will remain digital gold. However, I think that we may move to something else as far as payments are concerned, you know, whether that's going to be XRP or
I hope not.
or Nano, you know, or Digibyte. I don't know. It depends on whatever we decide, but I think there will be something else personally, but
Yeah.
I don't see Bitcoin going away anytime soon. I mean, I'm just being realistic. People hate on it for being the old man in the room, but it works.
Yeah. 10 years speaks for itself. I mean, 10 years of relatively no real drama in terms of, you know, hacks. You know, I always say there's really no such thing as a hack. It's more of a vulnerability. It hasn't been hacked. All the things that you can track back to say, oh, well, Bitcoin failed here. It wasn't Bitcoin at all. It was people who failed, right? And obviously, I think we're noticing a theme, and that is, again, people are the common denominator. It's mistakes that people make that cause issues. So what are your guys' thoughts on like these full stack solutions and in the way that they're going to apply here? So like the Elastos, the block stacks, the substratum, all that sort of thing, where they're looking not to take advantage of just wholesomely the finance side of it, the monetary side of it, but also, you know, the infrastructure side. Because I know, KDubb, you were talking about how you like the infrastructure stuff. You know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a lot that I'm interested in. Elastos, I like Elastos a lot. I mean, obviously, there's some channels that talk about it way more than I do. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. I just like to give other projects a chance. But yeah, Elastos is awesome. I'm a big fan of it. Another one that I like infrastructure-wise is also Block Cloud. If you've looked into it, they're like redesigning the TCP/IP layer. But here's the thing. I just wonder how you get people to use it. You know, when you talk about the infrastructure that we have right now, okay, it is a bit out, right? I mean, do you know anything about that, Forrest? It's a bit outdated, right? It's old, but it works, okay? But the thing is like, how are you, I mean, look how long it took us just to get to where we're at now. I mean, you brought up emails, right? How long did it take to get email to the point where it is now? How long did it take? Exactly. So that's what I'm concerned about with these projects like Elastos and, you know, even, like I said, Block Cloud or even Substratum, for example, but they're doing it more on the domain level, I think. Yeah, they may be great, but how are you going to get everyone to use them? Yeah. Like, yeah, we might use them, but like, what about like, I know like my sisters, like they're just like using their apps, doing their Snapchats. Like they're not going to like, oh, let me just like get my own like carrier node and like make sure that all my, you know, personal, like it's just crazy, you know? So I do wonder how that adoption, although it makes you wonder, is it one of those things where like it's going to take a catastrophic black swan event for people to finally wake up and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, now we're entering into like Black Mirror category.
Black Mirror category, yeah. But I think like, especially for the finance side, the things that I was talking about, like there is no chance that people move to a cryptocurrency system without there being some type of extreme pain point, right? Like it's just human nature that you don't change your behavior until there's a lot of pain, right? Like the smoker doesn't stop until it's like 100% sure the lung cancer is going to kill them, or like, you know, the person who's eating too much, like they don't stop until they get the diabetes. Like it's human nature to be driven by pain ultimately. And so from the money cryptocurrency side of things, like you see people in Venezuela signing up for Dash wallets because they are in so much pain. Like, then this whole node thing, it's not a conversation of convenience. It's a conversation of necessity. So they're going to do it.
Exactly. Dude, you know what? Yeah, you nailed it. Sorry, go ahead. But you nailed it. There are people that need this stuff. They really do.
And for those people, it's different. But in terms of like these full stack projects or these Web 3.0 layers and all of this stuff, like, is there really, I mean, I can think of some for Google and Facebook, like there's some extreme pains, right? 50 million more Facebook accounts just got hacked recently, right? So maybe privacy will become painful enough for people to want to switch to storing data in blockchain. Maybe that's possible. But for Web 3.0 type protocol layer things, like it's probably just going to have to be so good that it smacks someone in the face and eventually like people will change.
So here's another thing that I'm thinking though. It's, you know, I've talked about this a couple times, you know, with colleagues, et cetera. And it's, you know, maybe these platforms are pointing at the wrong market right now. You know, maybe their focus should be take the places on Earth that don't have infrastructure already that would need to be ripped out and replaced, because it's always harder to do that. You know, people don't change unless they have to. But what about people that don't have any of this already? You know, like what if you go to places in, you know, Southeast Asia, in Africa, in, you know, even some places in Eastern Europe that don't have good enough infrastructure yet to build this out and can't play in this market at all. And you go after them and say, you can run, you know, this carrier node thing where we can run everything in a runtime environment on a crappy cell phone. Put a cell phone in everyone's hand and say, let's build something from scratch here. Because then I guarantee you, I mean, you do two things. You're doing good for the world in general, and you're getting these people online. Two, you're proving your concept. And then I guess you have a bonus where it pressures everyone else to say, hey, that works. And I like that. Let me do that also. I mean, that's, you know, if I had the chance to speak with people from Elastos, from Blockstack, from, you know, all those projects more, I would say, like, let's do that. Let's go put it into places that have nothing, because it's easier that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to make the biggest splash too. And the adoption would be so much faster, because if everybody's using it all at once, it's not like here in the US, you know, we're very privileged to have so much different tech, so many different variations of cell phones, different carriers, different types of things. It's hard to kind of get everybody on the same page, you know. And I feel like if you went to a third world country and you started doing exactly that, and you gave everybody the same resource, put everybody on the same playing field, then it would be very quickly adopted, I think, because everybody's using it kind of in unison.
Yeah,
and the value is so much higher for them, right? Like ultimately providing a business service or a product is, you know, the kind of the definition is like somebody needs it, and you're providing value for them in return for money. And the value for those people is certainly much more significant than it is for us at this point in time. So I think that's a great point. And you know, I've kind of thought along those lines. Like that's why Dash is pretty cool. I mean, like I wasn't super interested in Dash, but now I see that they're actually there in the places they need to be, just like you're talking about. And it's like, okay, like that's really important. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to put the carriage, you know, before the horse. I mean, what do you really, you know, you want the price to go up, but you also need to get that adoption as well. And, you know, over here, there is that speculation, you know, a lot of us don't really need it, or the ones that are into it, you know, there's the anarchy or the libertarianism, you know, and we have our own agendas for why we do what we do. But like you guys said, these other people, they're doing it out of pure desperation. And I really do respect, like, for example, like you said, what Dash is doing. I've been following them. I've watched some videos and stuff, how they're getting, you know, Dash set up in all these different like local stores and stuff like that. And I think that's a really great initiative. And we can't forget about the people that do that as well, because we sit here, I'm on YouTube. Great. You know, what am I doing to change the world? I don't know, really, maybe nothing. I don't know. But I like to think that people like to watch this stuff. But then you have like the Dash team that's really out there putting this crypto into the hands of the people that need it the most. And I think that, you know, it sounds kind of corny, but that is like the bigger grand scheme of things. And hopefully,
and ironically, our speculation could really hurt them in that category, right? Like if we're adding major volatility and that's their life savings, like from the US standpoint, just mass speculation could actually be damaging. So
yeah, but at the same time, I mean, okay, it depends on what crypto they're using, but you know what, Bitcoin took like a 70% hit. Okay, the Venezuelan Bolivar, whatever it was, took a 99.99% repeating hit. So
yeah,
hey, man, you know, lesser of two evils or whatever. You know,
100. Yeah,
I mean, it's better than what they have.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
Absolutely, guys. So, I mean, we've been going for like an hour, 15 minutes here. I mean, I'm not rushing anybody off the chat, you know.
No,
so
I gotta leave because I gotta go to sleep now.
You look like you're about to go to sleep.
My day, my day is just so long. Yeah, no, but this is awesome, guys. It was so nice to have fresh faces and talk about like I love having people on that like have skill sets and knowledge and things that I don't understand. And the two of you have experience and work on things from a side that I have no idea about. So it was very enlightening to kind of just like have a meeting of the minds, so to speak.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having us on. Seriously.
I'm super pumped to be here. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're pumped.
Welcome anytime you guys want to come on. I like you guys. I think the chat likes you guys. We're all cool. So we're all friends here on YouTube land. So that being said, everyone, thanks again for everyone that came out to the live stream tonight. If you guys haven't had a chance to get subscribed to Hashoshi, CryptoCandor, Blockwolf, please go subscribe. And yeah,
Their
that's
links
it,
are
guys.
in my video description. So if you guys want to find a way to follow them on YouTube or Twitter, go in my video description and all their stuff is there.
Thank
Absolutely.
you guys so much.
You guys are awesome.
Thank
so until next time, I love everyone out there on my channel as well. Stay crypto.
Much love, guys.
Crypto.
Love you.